Hello and welcome back to my podcast. This is podcast number 6. I can't believe how many of you are subscribing to my YouTube channel. I'm incredibly grateful. So for those of you who are new and haven't watched before, I'm Claire and this is my knitting and crochet podcast. I'm also a very keen sewer and dressmaker, and you can also find videos on my YouTube channel from fabric hauls to makes videos, but I try to keep those separate to my podcast. So you can find me on Instagram, I'm ArtyFartyMac, and you can find me on Facebook, Craft Classes at Beautiful Things, because I also run Beautiful Things, which is a business, and we teach knitting, crochet, dressmaking, sewing, all sorts of craft classes from our studio in Essex, and we also teach online courses as well. So I'm nice and easy to find. I'm Claire Macaness on Twitter as well, and I'll put all the links below in the notes. So I'm going to start talking to you today, and I'm going to show you, first of all, I have a finished object. It's not very often I get them. I'm a very slow knitter, but I did show you in my previous podcast that I've made a start on my Winwick Mums socks, and I have finished them. So here they are, in all their glory. They're absolutely beautiful. Hopefully the camera's going to focus in on those for you. They're made with a custom dyed yarn by Little Boo Yarns. It's a sock weight yarn, and I've had them custom dyed in my company colours. And now when I spoke to Deb from Little Boo Yarns at Fibre East recently, she was really pleased to see that I was working on these, because she said she's never ever dyed brown before. Apparently it's not an easy colour to dye, which I didn't know, so she's had to custom make the brown from the different dyes that she uses, and so this is a colourway that she wouldn't really be able to recreate exactly again. So it really is not only a custom dye but pretty much a limited edition dye. So these are the BTHQ socks. So if you're coming along to YarnDale in September, you may well see me on my stand wearing these socks. So if you want to have a look, then you'll have to get hold of my feet. So my question to you is, what do you do with your leftover sock yarn? Because I've got quite a bit left here, as you can see. There's a good, almost half a cake there. But there's obviously not enough to make another pair of socks with. I've seen lots of people who do the cozy memory blankets, which is a nice idea, but I don't honestly think at this stage in my knitting career I'm going to have enough skeins left to make a cozy memory blanket. I know lots of people tend to buy mini skeins for the same purpose, but I don't really see the purpose of that personally. I'd much rather use up my oddments that I've actually used to make projects with. So I did buy a kit to make mini socks from Fibre East. I have had a little go at that. I thought using up my oddments would be good for that, but I'm not getting on brilliantly with it, I have to admit. It is super fiddly. So I'm still on the wall, really, or on the fence as to what I'm going to do with my leftovers. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Perhaps if anyone's got a pattern for a child size pair of socks that's really nice and easy to follow, you share that with me. I have got a 5-year-old, and so I'm thinking I could perhaps have enough yarn here to make her a pair of socks, or maybe even like trainer socks. So if you've got any good patterns, then I'd be really grateful for you to send them my way. So that's my only finished object that I've got. Another question for you. I've been following a lot of podcasts recently, and I know people have FOs or finished objects. What is a hoe or a hoe? Is it a half object? Is it? I'm not sure. I know people often say it when they've got just one sock off the needles. So I'm guessing it's a half object, but I'm not sure. So if you could enlighten me as to what a hoe is, I would be very grateful, because I've probably got lots of those if they're half finished, but I'm not sure if I've got that right. So do let me know. So I'm going to move on to what's on my needles. So I went to Amsterdam this weekend. I got back last night. I had a fantastic time. We got there Thursday morning and we were there right through until Sunday evening. I'd finished my Winwick Mum socks on the Monday before we went. So on Wednesday night, before we flew, I sat down and I cast on my next pair of socks. And I was very brave. I went for 2 at a time. So I'm using my Little Beautiful Things project bag. This is a small project bag, and the reason I'm using it is that I have followed Mina Phillips from the Knitting Expats pattern. It's a free Ravelry download. Oops, I've got lots of needles hiding in this paper. Here we go. It's a free Ravelry download which I printed off before I went for 2 at a time socks. And so she has a great video tutorial on there. So here we go, Mina's 2 at a time socks. Again, I'll put the link down below. She has a great tutorial on there for casting on, knitting the cuff, and working 2 at a time, and how to manage your yarn, or as she calls it, yarn management. Extremely posh. But she uses a little project bag so that she can have her 2 cakes inside and the yarn doesn't get too crossed over. So when you bring your work out, it doesn't look particularly uncrossed over, but it is. When you bring your work out, your yarn is coming out of your bag so that it doesn't get crossed over. So I've got my 2 cakes in here to work from. So the yarn that I decided to use, I was going to have a go at my self-striping socks, but I figured for the first time working 2 at a time, it probably wouldn't be the easiest thing to do to try and keep my stripes nice and even. So I thought I'd just go for something fairly normal, that if it went horribly wrong, I wouldn't be upset if I wasted. So I wasn't going to waste one of my really nice expensive skeins that I've shown you. So I actually cast on the yarn I showed you in my last podcast, which Viv gave me, which is the Women's Institute 100% acrylic microfiber yarn. I thought at the end of the day, I think it's about £5 or £6 a ball. It wasn't disastrous. If it went wrong, I could rip it back and I wouldn't cry too much. So I got my mum to very kindly cake it up for me on the Wednesday afternoon while she was in the studio, and I cast it on Wednesday night. And it really is very easy. Having made my second sock, my second Winwick Mum sock, Magic Loop, I understood the concept of working Magic Loop. So as long as you don't get your yarn crossed, it is quite simple. You can see I've got quite a way here. I'm using a progress keeper here to keep a note of my rows. So I'm moving that up every 10 rows. The only thing that I've done slightly differently is the cuff. Mina does 20 rounds of 2x2 ribbing. I've just done 12. So on the Winwick Mums, you do 16. And as I was knitting, I thought that's getting quite thick. I think it's because of the yarn, although it is a sock weight yarn, because it's quite fluffy and padded, it knits up quite quickly and quite thickly. And with the rib, it was getting quite large, and I don't like a massive cuff on my socks. So I actually measured it up against my Winwick Mum sock, and at 12 rounds, it was the same sort of size as the 16 rounds that I like. So I stopped at 12. And I think that's the thing I'm really enjoying about knitting socks, is that you really do just take it bit by bit. So you can combine different patterns. So you make your cuff how you want it to. You make your leg as long as you want it to. You do your heel however you like to do heels. So be a heel flap and gusset, or a fish lips kiss heel, or a short row, German short row heel. However you want to do your heel, you can do. Then you go on and you do your foot as long as you want your foot to be, and you finish your toe however you like to do your toes. So it is quite nice that you can combine all these different patterns, and I think the more pairs that I make, eventually I will find a sock that I absolutely love. I already think I'm going to like the heel that comes with this pattern. This is a German short row heel. I think it will be a lot quicker. I'm not a great fan of a heel flap and gusset, I have to admit. It's very fiddly, and I'm not sure how easy it is to do Magic Loop. I found it a bit stretchy, and I'm not a DPM fan. So, as I said, sock knitting is a journey for me. The more that I make, the more I'm learning, and I'm trying with each pair that I make to teach myself something new. So for this pair, although I'm just going for a very simple pattern, I'm going to do 2 at a time, Magic Loop, which is a new thing, and I'm going to try the German short row heel. So I'll let you know how I get on with these. At the moment, I did quite a bit of them. I knitted on the plane. I got the cuff finished at home before I went, got them both onto the needle. And I did, then I've just been working on the leg. So I think I've got about 23 rounds done there, and I did some knitting on the plane. Bearing in mind it's only a 35-minute flight, so not that long. I did a little bit of knitting on day one. I stopped at a cafe and did a little bit of knitting for an hour, and then I think I did another little bit on the way home at the airport and also on the plane. So I've not done a great deal, but I'm quite pleased with how far I've got with those. Now, the reason I didn't get quite as much knitted while I was away is that I may have started a new project. So I'll tell you more about my yarn buying later on the podcast. But whilst I was in Amsterdam, I did go to quite a few yarn shops. But one of the ones that I went to, I bought 2 skeins of this beautiful Rowan alpaca. It's baby alpaca. And it's in a lovely plummy pink colour. So you can see that there. You can see it's super fluffy. But it's really, really soft. And the reason that I bought this is in one of the shops there was a lovely, lovely hat. It's like a rib, but wasn't an obvious rib. And it was on the wall, and I just sort of touched it and instantly fell in love with how soft it was. And I thought, do you know what, that looks really, really nice. It's quite simple. I could see it was just a basic 2-row repeat rib pattern, and it just been drawn up at the top, and they put a giant big pom-pom bobble on the top. So I really, really liked it, and the lady in the shop was extremely helpful. Her English was absolutely superb, and we were having a long chat about this hat. And it turns out it's a pattern, sorry, let me just get the pattern out. It's a pattern by a lady called Susan Hargreaves, and it's from a book, it's a Rowan book called Shadow. Now the shop is a Rowan supplier, so they're able to photocopy the patterns from the books if you purchase the yarn. So I did. In the pattern it says you need 3 skeins, and it was €11 a skein. So I said to her that much as I loved it, I thought €33 for a hat was quite a bit. And she said, it's not 3 skeins, it's only 2. And I said, well, the pattern says 3. And she said, no, it's not. It's definitely only 2. Look, I'll show you. So she got the hat and she got her scales out, and she weighed the hat and on the scales, including the pom-pom. And it actually came in just a tiny bit less than the weight of 2 skeins. They're 50 gram skeins. So she said, I think they've said it's 3. It's either an error or they're just being safe to be sorry. She said, but you'll definitely be okay with 2 skeins. So I was like, oh, are you sure? So she had another sample without a pom-pom, and she weighed that as well, and it came in even lower. So I've trusted her, and I've gone with her the measurements, and I purchased 2 skeins of the alpaca. Now, I could not wait to get started. It was so soft, so I got back to the hotel room, and I borrowed my husband's feet. And he works very, very well as a Swift. I put the skein around his feet while he was laying on the bed reading, and I just stood there winding my yarn off his feet. So I have done a video of my travels around Amsterdam and all the shops that I went to. So I'm going to get that edited and uploaded for you in the next few days. So you'll get to see me doing that, and you'll get to see the shop and the samples, etc, etc. So I'm really, really pleased with it. So I cast it on, and I was doing really well. I'd got about 6 rounds in. Now, if you look, you can see there's a colour variation here, and you'll see where I've gone wrong. So if I can get this to focus in for you. Come on. I'm not sure that that's really showing up. It's a bit sunny. I don't think it's really showing, but from the bottom to here, you can see we've got a nice neat rib, and then it goes to a kind of purpley colour, and it all goes horribly wrong. And it's almost skipped kind of 1 stitch out. The stitch count's still right, but it's really hard to see what I'm doing and where I've gone wrong. So it's not a classic 2x2 rib. It's one of the rows is a knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1 to the end, and then the second row is a knit 1, purl 1, and then knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1. So it's all kind of offset, and it makes the ridges look, although they look straight, they've got a nice roll to them. So the problem with that is, unlike a rib, which is quite intuitive, so you can see what the stitch in the row below was that you did, so you're just going to repeat that same stitch. you can't see that pattern. Certainly not, you probably can once you're away into the hat, but when you're first getting started, you can't see logically what you need to be doing. So in your head, you're going knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1 as you go along. So I've obviously gone wrong somewhere and either knitted too many or knitted too few, and I've just kicked it out by a stitch. So I tried to pull it back 2 rows and put it back on the needles, but of course then I've probably twisted some of the stitches around the wrong way, not being sure whether they were knits or purls. So I've knitted those 2 rows again, but it's still not right. So as much as I hate to say it, I think the problem is I'd got really into it. I'd knitted about 4 or 5 rows, I'd put it down, gone out for the night, come home, gone back to work on it the next day, and I'd probably picked it up back to front, or I'd started on a row 1 instead of a row 2. I'm not quite sure what I did. So I think the best thing to do is put it down as a learning curve. It's only a few rows. As much as I hate to say it, I've wasted probably 3 or 4 hours of knitting, but I'm just going to pull it all back and I'm going to start again. So I'll show you how I get on with that at a later date. But needless to say, it's a lovely project. It is a bit of a pain to knit with because it is super fluffy and it does split. And also I have changed my needles. When you watch my Amsterdam video, you'll see that I bought Addy Straights in the shop, but as soon as I sat down to try to knit with them, they were no joke. They were about this long, so they were literally tucked under my armpits while I was trying to knit. I was really uncomfortable with it. I think where I've got used to working on circulars, because I've been knitting socks, they're smaller and they're easier to handle. So I did go back to the shop the next day. It was literally just behind our hotel, and I managed to swap them for circulars. So I've got myself 100 metre cables, although I don't need that. 100 metres? 100 centimetres. 100 centimetre cables, although I don't need them to be that long. I like the fixed Addies, and I figured I've got the different lengths then for when I want to do shawls and things like that, so it's good to have them in my stash. So that comes on to another question. I'm a bit rambly today, I apologise. I'm trying to remember everything I want to tell you. The hat is done by knitting front, back, front, back, front, back, and then pulling up on the top and joining up the back seam. I'm assuming there's nothing to stop me doing the pattern again in the round, like I would a sock, although you're not going to be able to turn to get the difference on the front of the back. I'm guessing that's what's going to stop me from doing that. But it leads me to wondering whether, if you've got a long cable, I've got a jumper that I'm working on at the moment, also on my needles, the Talisane jumper, and that's all knitted up as flat pieces. But what is to stop me knitting both of the sleeves, for instance, or the front and the back, which are exactly the same, at the same time, in the same way that I would do my socks? So I'd have 2 cakes of yarn, but I'm just using 1 circular needle. So I do the same row across one sleeve, then I do the same row across another sleeve, then I turn it round and do the same row across another sleeve, same row across another sleeve. So I'm knitting 2 at a time. What's to stop me doing that? But flat, but on circular needles. If there isn't anything stopping me doing that, I could be making 2 or 3 hats at a time, or I could be making 2 sleeves at a time. I haven't started on the sleeves of my jumper yet, so if it is possible, I'd love to know, because I think that would be a lot more rewarding. What I'm finding hard now, so I'll move on to my jumper, is that I've nearly finished the front of my jumper, or the back of my jumper, whatever you want to call it. Trying not to pull this off its needles. So you can see it's here. I'm doing really well with that. I've nearly finished it, but then knowing that I've got to set 2 and start exactly the same piece again is a little bit disheartening. So if I'd been knitting it at exactly the same time, then I'd have a front and a back finished at the same time. So if I can do that, let me know, because I will knit the sleeves that way. And then it will probably come together a little bit quicker. And also with the stripes, it'd be nice to see that the stripes are matching nicely. So you can see that's almost done. I think I've got about 5 rows left to do on that, and that will become either the front or the back. I will wait and see until I've knitted the other side, and whichever bit's the neatest will be the front, whichever bit's the holiest will be the back. So I think that's all for what's on my needles. So my hat, my 2 at a time socks, and my jumper. So that's all for what's on my needles. I'll tell you a little bit more about Amsterdam when we get on to the waffly bit. just got to show you what's on my hook at the moment. So if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll have seen I recently did an event with my lovely friend Liz to raise money for Mind, the mental health charity, in association with a depressed cake shop. So do go and have a little look at that video. It's only very short, but it will show you the event and it will show you what we were doing. But whilst we were there, we were getting people to crochet squares together, and they were doing rainbow squares like these. I've done about 3 of them, but the other ones have been done by regulars and people that attended the event. This one was one we needed just to finish the blanket off, and my mum's very kindly done this while I was away. And she's also left these on my sofa for when I got home because she's been darning in all the ends. So far you can see it's coming together. It's just a small lap blanket, and all of the squares have been done and they've been joined together using grey yarn. So I've just got to add that last one on. Once I've added that on, then I'm going to put another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so another 7 rounds round the outside in rainbow colours, and then I'll finish it off with a grey edging, and then we might put some tassel pom-poms on the end. So that's nearly finished. So I've been busy joining that together, and Mum's been busy darning in the end. So once that's finished, we're not quite sure how we're going to do it yet. We're either going to raffle it or we're going to auction it. But I will think about how I'm going to do that in the next few weeks or so, and we're going to be giving all of the money that's raised for that blanket to Mind, which is the mental health charity, to say thank you to Liz for organising the event, and just to add some more funds into the pot so she can raise a little bit more for a really good cause. So that's been on my hook. The other thing that's been on my hook, this has been on the podcast before, is my poncho that I'm working on with some of my pupils. This is our poncho along class. I've added all of the stripes now, and it's now ready to put the ribbing and the tassels on the bottom. So this is at its final stage now, but the class is next Saturday, which is our final poncho class. So everyone will be putting their ribbing on the bottom and their tassels. So I'm going to hold fire before I do any more to that. If you want to find out more about that, then just go back and look over some of my other podcasts, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in more detail, and the yarns that I'm using, etc. But hopefully I'll be able to come back to you with a finished object on that one with my next podcast. So I haven't really got a lot of crochet going. The only other thing I've got to do is just to finish up. I've got in here, you can see, this is going to be assembled. This is my cacti garden. So I've got my bowl and my soil here. And then I've got all my little cacti that I've crocheted, the little cactus and a little fuzzy one here. And they're all in the basket. They all need to have some stuffing put in them and be attached to their soil. Now this is a sample for YarnDale. Those of you who don't know about YarnDale, it's a fantastic fibre festival that takes place in Skipton in North Yorkshire at the end of September. It's organised by Lucy from the blog Attic24 and some of her colleagues, and this will be the 4th year that they've run YarnDale. I've been with my friends for the last 2 years, and this year is the first year that we're going to be exhibiting, so I'm quite excited about that. I'm also very nervous. It's only 4 weeks away now, and we've got an awful lot of preparation to do. But one of the things that we're launching exclusively at YarnDale is an online course and kit to make our amigurumi cactus garden. So this is the sample that I'm just putting together. This is all of the bits and pieces that I've got after I filmed the course, which I filmed a couple of weeks ago. I went into the editing studio last Friday and edited it all. And whilst I was away, our fantastic editing guy has dropped off the files to work, so they'll be waiting for me tomorrow. So the course is about, I think it's about 1 hour and 45 minutes long in total, and you'll receive a kit with all of the yarn that you need to be able to make the cactus garden. You'll also get an instruction book and absolutely everything that you need to finish it off. So that's going to be available to purchase at YarnDale. So if you're coming along to the show, you're going to be one of the first people who's able to buy that, and it will be available at a reduced cost as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. And if we have any left at the end of the show, then we will sell them via our website. But I'm hoping that we'll sell out. If not, then you will be able to get your hands on them, because once we've sold all of our initial 150 that we're doing, we will make some more kits and we will get them online. So that's a little job for me to do this afternoon. So there's lots and lots of yarny stuff going on in my life at the moment. I'm just checking my list to make sure that there's nothing else I need to tell you. Oh yes. If you do want to get a discount on any of our online courses, I have got a coupon code running at the moment, and the coupon code is Happy Hooking. And if you enter that into the coupon box when you're at the checkout, that will give you £5 off any of our online courses. All you have to do is go onto the website, which I'll run along the bottom. It's www.semivirtualcourses.com. And when you're on there, you'll be able to purchase either our beginner's crochet course or our intermediate crochet course, and you'll be able to get £5 off when you put the code in. It gives you instant access to the online videos, and it gives you access to any of the PDF documents that you need to download. And then as soon as I've received notification that you've purchased your course, I will be able to post your kit out to you. And we post within 48 hours of ordering, and it normally takes 2 to 3 days to arrive. So just bear that in mind. If you're itching to get started, the sooner that you purchase it, the sooner you'll receive your kit in the post. If you are coming to YarnDale, then hold fire, because the courses will be slightly cheaper and you'll be able to take your kit home with you on the day. So you won't have to wait for it to arrive in the post, but it depends how quickly you want to get started. So I'll just tell you a little bit about a couple of the shops that I visited in Amsterdam. I know those of you that are avid knitters will be quite excited that I've mentioned Amsterdam and knitting in the same sentence, because you will know that the famous Stephen West has a shop called Stephen and Penelope. So that's here. And Stephen and Penelope is a beautiful yarn shop. What I actually did is I went for a bit of an explore with my husband. First of all, when we got there on the Thursday, we got there quite early in the morning. So we left our bags in our hotel and we went off for a bit of a mooch. And we went for a wander, and I realised I was actually in really close proximity to Stephen and Penelope. So we'd stopped for lunch at a nice little cafe in a square, and I thought, while I'm here, I'll have a look at my map and I'll have a look at Google on my phone, because I had some Wi-Fi, and I'll work out where all the places are that I want to visit, so that at some point I'll be able to go to them. And I realised while we were having lunch that Stephen and Penelope was literally a stone's throw away from where we were. So I persuaded him to come with me. So after lunch we went off to find Stephen and Penelope. You'll see on the video that he managed to find himself a nice comfy seat in the yarn shop. And I had a good look around. I'd already planned to go back on Thursday evening because they had a knit night there, and I'd emailed them in advance and to ask if they'd had any workshops or anything on while I was there. And they'd said, no, we haven't, but there is a knit night on Thursday night. It's really, really busy. Do come along, and you might get to meet Stephen. So that was exciting, but I thought, no, we'll go and see it because it's nearby. We might as well go and see it in the day. I can get some video film in there while it's quieter. And also I know then where I'm coming back to in the evening, because I'd probably come back on my own. So we went for a mooch around. I got some video footage. I spoke to the lady in the shop. She was showing me some of the patterns. And I said to her that I'll come back and have a look in more detail in the evening. Looking forward to knit night. What time was it, etc, etc. What I will say about Stephen and Penelope is that if you want to make anything, you'll need to remortgage your house. It is extremely expensive. The average skein in there is about €28, and the exchange rate at the moment is absolutely shocking. It's almost pound for euro. It's only just a tiny bit under, so you'd be looking at, I don't know, £25-26 a skein for the yarn. It is beautiful. There's lots of Madeline Tosh and hedgehog fibres and really, really lovely yarn, but it is really expensive. And a lot of it, I would say, is is it semi-tonal, just sort of plain and semi-tonal. There's not really a lot of amazing variegated yarns or anything that I would say is particularly pretty. In fact, there was absolutely nothing in there that made me go, I have to have that. Not sure what happened there, but I'd kind of hyped up Stephen and Penelope as being the place to go, and I'd planned on getting one of his patterns and buying the yarn for it, and it just wasn't going to happen. I did go back in the evening, but there was only about 3 people there. They were downstairs and they were chatting to each other. They weren't upstairs in the knit lounge. They were very much talking to each other. It was quite cliquey. And I don't think it helped that it was a really, really, really hot day. And so it was sweltering in the shop. There was no air conditioning. It was really sticky and really sweaty. And I think people had probably just decided that, you know what, we're not going to go. It's really horrible night to be going to a knit night. There was no sign of Mr. West, unfortunately. I was a bit too chicken to ask where he was or if he was there. But I did talk to the lady in there and asked her what shawl she recommended. I can't remember the name of the one she showed me, but it did look lovely, but it also looked quite complicated. And she was going, no, it's easy, you'd need this, that, and whatever. But it turned out it would have been about £140 to buy the yarn. I wasn't 100% sure that I really wanted to do it. And there was nothing in there that particularly floated my boat. Certainly not in the sale section, which would have been the only place I could have afforded to shop. So Stephen and Penelope was a bit of a letdown, really, if I'm honest. It is a lovely shop. If you're in Amsterdam, go. Don't make a special trip there. So that was the Thursday. After lunch and after our visit to Stephen and Penelope, so going back a bit, I dropped Stuart off at the hotel. We'd got up really, really early. We'd got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to fly, and he hadn't really slept that night. So he was really, really tired. So he went for a bit of a nana nap. And I decided I'd go on a bit of an adventure. So I went and hired a bike, as you do, and I rode my bike around all of the various yarn shops, and I had a really, really lovely afternoon. I had my bike for 3 hours. I was probably out and about for 2, and then I stopped in a cafe for the last hour, and then rode through Dam Square in the middle of the chaos that is Dam Square, and tried not to kill myself to meet Stuart for a G&T. And he then took my bike back to the hire shop, and I went off to Stephen and Penelope to knit night. But I wasn't there for very long. I was probably there all of half an hour. Had a little look around, sat down, did a tiny bit of knitting with a lady who didn't really talk to me, and thought, you know what, I think I'd rather be out having fun with Stu, and so I went home. But the knitting shops I did go to, there was 2 lovely shops. One of them is called Die Afstrap, and that's where I purchased my alpaca yarn. It's just behind our hotel, so it was nice and easy to find. It was a lovely shop. It was predominantly Rowan and makes of yarn. There wasn't really any hand-dyed or natural fibres, etc. It was a very, very pretty shop, very well laid out, as you'll see from my video, and the lady in there was incredibly helpful. So thank you to you if you're watching. I have emailed the shop to let them know, or I plan to email the shop to let them know that I've mentioned them. And the lady that I spoke to in the shop, funnily enough, was actually at the knit night at Stephen and Penelope. So I thought that was really nice. They're obviously not necessarily competitive shops because they're 2 very different types of store in what they sell. But obviously they both run knitting businesses in the same city. They're not too far away from each other, but they support each other's businesses by attending their events. And I thought that was really nice. So I did say hello to her when I was in Stephen and Penelope. So I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but thank you very much for your help with the yarn and the hat, and I will obviously let you know when that's finished. So yeah, beautiful shop, really lovely. One of the things I particularly liked was the window boxes outside the shop. Obviously Amsterdam is very famous for having beautiful window boxes and lovely outside frontages to all the houses and things. But these window boxes were full of yarn, which I thought was fantastic. So there was lovely bright balls of cotton in them, and they looked really, really pretty. So that was the first shop that I visited. I then travelled to the north of the old town, which was quite a long ride away. You can see there's some video footage that Stuart took of me riding. It was actually done on a different day, but it is the same route. So I've included that into my Amsterdam video. And I went to visit a shop called YarnDale. So it's here. Not sure if that's going to focus in. There you go. And YarnDale specialises in natural fibres, and I didn't buy anything there, mainly because there wasn't really anything that I saw that floated my boat, but it was a very, very pretty shop, and they had lots and lots of really unusual fibres in there, lots of lace weights, lots of silk, some beautiful sock yarns, and they've done lots and lots of creatures, little soft toys in all their different yarns. So there's monkeys and rabbits and all sorts. And it was a really, really lovely shop. And again, the staff in there were very nice. They were very interested to know what I was going to do with my video footage that I took of the shop. And so I said to them as well, I would make sure that I sent them some links. So when you finish watching this podcast for today, if you wait, I don't know, depends on the editing, probably 2 or 3 days, I should then be uploading my Amsterdam video and you'll be able to come to the shops with me. So the last shop that I went to, I didn't know about before I got to Amsterdam, but when I'd posted on Instagram that I was sitting in a cafe and I was knitting and that I'd been shopping, one of my followers on Instagram said, do make sure that you visit Bird Blocks. It's a beautiful fabric shop and you must go and see it. Go and meet Meryl, who owns the shop, and it's a really lovely place. And Meryl then posted and said, yep, do come and see me. She'd seen a picture of the map that I'd posted on Instagram where I'd circled all the yarn shops, and she said, we're by the big green number 60 on the map. And when I looked, it was literally opposite my hotel. So I literally stepped out across the road and she was dead opposite. So how I could have missed it, I don't know, considering it has the word quilt in the windows and loads of beautiful fabric. So I did pop in and I did go in to visit Meryl. Unfortunately, she was away. There was a quilt festival going on down in the south of Holland, and she was down there. But I spoke to her colleague, who was a lovely lady. Again, we had a long chat. She's an English lady who has moved out to Holland and is working in the shop, and we were having a long chat. It is a beautiful, beautiful shop. If you love patchwork and quilting, then I would make a special trip to go there. It's lovely. But if you have a look at my video, you'll see I have filmed some video. I didn't need any fabric, but I couldn't go in, do a load of video filming, talk to everybody and not buy myself something, because that would just be rude. So I did buy a fat quarter, and I bought this lovely fabric with all these gorgeous thimbles on it, and they've all got little flowers and little roses, like little antique thimbles. So there's enough here to make a couple of project bags. So I'll make one for myself, and then I'll probably make one either to sell or as a giveaway. So yeah, that's basically my podcast for this week. It's quite a long one actually. We've gone to 40 odd minutes, I think. The cut when the video went a bit funny was my camera telling me you filmed 30 minutes. I'm going to stop there and you're going to have to start again. So I'll need to remember that for next time, that I can only do 30 minutes of footage at a time on this camera. So I apologise if that edit and that cut is a little bit dodgy. I will see what I can do with it, and hopefully you might not even have noticed. But I'm going to say bye for now. I'm hoping to get one more podcast in before I go to YarnDale. If not, then I will get some videoing done obviously while I'm there, and there'll be lots of things to show you about how we get there, what we do when we're there, and how we get back and how we got on. So I'll say bye for now, and do please make sure you comment below and let me know what you thought of the podcast, if you've got any questions or if you can answer any of my questions. So I'll say see you later. Bye for now.